All right, good morning, guys. I've been asked to do a video on rebuilding the old style chemical pump, not the square style, but the old style with a big nut on the bottom. And so I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible so anybody can follow this and get excellent results. The first thing I'd like to point out is that this brass fitting on the bleeder valve here that screws into the chem pump, that's your bleeder, and this is a Butler made part. It's a adapter that goes from super small fine thread to a 1/4 inch to accommodate this 1/4 inch shutoff valve for your bleeder line. And that is only to be snugged up by hand first. So you're going to spin it in here by hand until it's tight, and it's tight up against the body of the chem pump, and then to take an adjustable wrench or a wrench the size that it needs and just to give it another tweak. And that's it. Many of you guys have muscled it on and snapped that little nipple off inside the chemical pump, and I've had to send you one of these adapters. So hand tight, and then just give it another tweak to rotate this valve nice and straight across the top, and that's all you need. So when this is sitting on, when the whole apparatus is sitting on top the main cap pump, you just want to break this, remove this line, stainless steel line, goes to the head of the pump, and then to break this loose, just break it loose and twist it off. Now there's an O-ring back here that does all the sealing. You don't have to put any Teflon tape or goop or nothing there here. And so there's an O-ring, and I always inspect that to make sure it's not all dried out or split. Okay, so set that aside. Now on the inlet side and the outlet side, there's a check valve directly in front of the chemical pump. So there's an inlet check valve going in directly ahead of the chem pump, and then here's one going out. And if you see, this one is facing this way because the body of it contains the spring and the Teflon nub, Teflon check valve. And this one here is backwards, where as the chemical flows through, it pushes up against that check valve and the spring to allow your chemical through. Okay, I have these in hand tight. So you want to release that, spin that one off, and then spin this one off. Now you might have to remove the unloader that's sitting down here so you can have a little more room to work around. And you also might have to take and spin the chemical pump that fashion, just enough to get to spin this off, because it'll want to hit the dampener. Okay, and so I've got this hand tight, and you want to inspect, you want to pull this apart and inspect the check valve to make sure it's still a cone shape. This one here happens to be, it's just got some rubber residual from the O-ring inside there, but it still looks usable. So I'm going to call that a go. Now these are easily replaceable too. Butler has those, I have those. But then once you've inspected that, you stick it back in and tighten that up good and tight. Set that aside. And now this here piece, you can spin this whole thing right off the cat pump as one. But if you have a big adjustable wrench, like this, a big crescent wrench, you can spin that, you can put that wrench on there, and so you're grabbing the top side, and then with a pair of channel locks, open that up, grab a hold of that nut on the bottom, and break it loose. Once it's loose, continue spinning it loose. Okay, and then I just rebuilt this, so I'm just showing you. Here's your diaphragm, and here's the O-ring. And so you want to make sure that this Teflon disc is in place and it's not cracked or broken in pieces. I've seen that before. And then inspect your diaphragm. If there's any check marks on the diaphragm anywhere, if there's any holes in here, just discard it. And then also always discard this O-ring and put a new O-ring in this little groove here. Then I have on hand some Parker Super O-Lube. It's O-ring lubricant. And so I'll take just a small amount of this. Stuff is really kind of sticky, but I'll just lube that O-ring a little bit like that. Put the new diaphragm in place like that. It's always good to clean up these threads and make sure there's no debris in these threads, and you don't want to cross thread it. That's a major no-no. If you cross thread it, you'll have to replace the whole chem pump. And so one way I go about joining any fittings, whether it's this big one here or a small valve or one of the check valves here, I'll spin it backwards. I'll spin it backwards until I hear a click. It's not clicking. Oh, that's why. I already had it started. But I'll spin it backwards till it clicks into place, and then I'll rotate it. Then I know I'm completely lined up with the threads on both sides. So then I'll spin that together. That has to be super tight. So once I've gotten that together, then I'll start reinstalling my fittings. I'll put new Teflon tape on here and on the other parts and spin that in. You always want to make it look like nobody's ever been in there since Butler built it. And so I'll bring this around to where this is nice and straight. Same rule applies on this side. I'll spin this in hand tight as far as I could get it. Take my adjustable. Spin it around till it's good and straight. Pardon pardon this is an old valve, but make sure everything is nice and straight and in line. And then finally, attaching the bleeder valve assembly. Here we go. Again, bring this hand tight, and then you just need one little tweak to position this elbow straight down. And that's it. Connect all your lines, your bleeder line going to the head of the pump. Connect this line coming from the top of the flow meter, and connect this line, of course it'll be dangling out here, but then connect this line that feeds the system. And away you go. That's all set. Reinstall your unloader, and then go through your bleeding procedure. It's it in a nutshell. That's how I do it. Oftentimes I'll pull it off the pump if I have questions about the condition of this body or something else. I'll just pull it off. It's just really easy for me to do. But if you're on a job and you run, you're having issues with this not drawing, then I recommend just doing what I just showed you how to do. But otherwise, very simple. Just a diaphragm and an O-ring and 2 check valves with springs that usually get you back up and running. Chip's Butler Service, and I'm all over it.